David Brewster here with an episode of 3 for All. This is 3 David Gilmour Licks from 1988. And so far on this channel, I've put together one other, 3 for All lesson for David Gilmour, and there's 2 episodes of chord play for Pink Floyd. And I'm pretty sure in all those episodes I admitted this, but I'm going to admit it again. I love Pink Floyd. I love David Gilmour. I'm a huge prog rock fan, and this really dark and kind of moody sound that they tapped into in the 60s and extended through the 70s. And they just dominated the 70s. And there's something really cool about David Gilmour's, playing style. It's very expressive and emotive, and he has this really soulful, kind of gritty, feel and energy when he plays. And I can't get enough of it. It's great tone, great feel, great phrases. And even though it's usually very basic, there's nothing flashy or shreddy going on when Gilmour plays, but it just knocks you out with this energy, and it sounds like a human being playing guitar, which I think that's why I love it so much. So I just flashed that image that had all the album covers from Pink Floyd and David Gilmour's solo albums too. But there's one area of his career it seems like a lot of players forget, or they just don't dive, deep enough. And that's his session work and his guest appearances with a whole bunch of different people. So here's another image with some albums that feature David Gilmour, and you may have overlooked some of these, so check this out. So Gilmour's love of blues music runs deep, and I've always found it interesting that the classic, British rock guitarists from the 60s and 70s were all hopelessly, obsessed with blues. The Beatles, The Who, Clapton with Cream, and of course you had Jimmy Page, Jeff Beck, eventually Jimi Hendrix shows up over there. So, England just explodes, with this blues rock, revival. And even though Pink Floyd was definitely, influenced by blues, but they had more of this kind of psychedelic blues kind of sound, like a psychedelic progressive rock blues, I guess. And they eventually kind of, started to shed that psychedelic side and was more prog rock eventually. But I think a lot of that bluesy element came from Gilmour and the things he was playing. And, it's just really interesting to notice all the activity happening in England in the 60s and 70s surrounding rock and blues influences and stuff. But here's a quote from David Gilmour, basically explaining his love of the blues. As far as Pink Floyd's music itself, they rarely ever played a traditional blues. It was very, very rare for them to do that. But I did go the extra mile for this lesson, and I listened to Pink Floyd's entire discography, and also David Gilmour's solo albums too. And here's an image with some moments where you can actually kind of catch either Pink Floyd or David Gilmour literally playing a blues. And some of these are not really traditional, but they do kind of follow like the blues formula or style. But check this out. The licks in this lesson came from 2 different places. There was actually a live concert that David Gilmour played with Les Paul. It was kind of a special concert for Les Paul, and that was in 1988. And then some of the licks actually came 10 years later in 1998, and I found footage of David Gilmour playing with B.B. King. It was kind of a holiday special. So it's really cool to catch David Gilmour not playing with Pink Floyd or with his band, solo, but we're catching him out of his comfort zone playing with Les Paul's band and B.B. King's band. So this really does kind of showcase, David Gilmour in a different light, and it's really heavy on the blues. So here we go. The first lick's really basic, but it's this expressive blues phrase, and we're in G or G7, and it's something like this. One more time. So we're in G or G7, kind of a standard blues, that kind of thing. And you hear this really cool, he's targeting the G, grabs this F, and then slides into that G. Like that. Add a little bit of vibrato there. And then he's grabbing this. So right there, he's grabbing that B flat, kind of slight bends that, grabs G, grabs the C, and kind of slight bends that. And then you want to go back to that B flat. And then you want to go back to the C, and then you're going to grab that C to G, grab that B flat, and then you're going to bend it up a half step perfectly to B at the end. Like that. And you're basically targeting that major third, but you're doing it with the bend. Right? Really crafty. kind of riff in the background. Really tasty lick. The next lick's played over the 5 chord, which we're in G, and that would be D7 technically, right? And we're doing this. One more time. And that's all over that D chord. So right there, you're grabbing D, and you're going to bend that up a step and a half, or a minor third, so that D is going to go up to an F. You're going to grab this D, C, D, grab that B flat we were using on the first lick, kind of smear bend that, and then right here with your middle finger, you're going to basically over fret or overextend. You want to grab this G, and then you're going to end on that D note, so you're kind of rolling that middle finger like that. And you're targeting the root, which is that D, right? So it's really, compact little phrase. He's ending it there. It almost reminds me of Clapton or even B.B. King a little bit. You're targeting, the root of the 5 chord like that. Or whatever. But that's a cool lick, over the 5 chord. The next lick, we're going to jump ahead 10 years to 1998 when David Gilmour was playing with B.B. King. So here we are 10 years later in the same key, but the feel is different. We're kind of doing that bounce blues like this. That kind of thing. And we catch David doing this. One more time. Kind of playing out of the B.B. King box, which we did recently talk about that in B.B. King's 3 for All, which was the previous 3 for All lesson. But there's B.B. King's box right here in G. And we find David Gilmour targeting that E and that G note like this. So he's targeting that E and G like that. And then he's going to grab this A and bend it. Grab that C note. Grab that A and bend it again a little further, and then you're going to grab A, E, and end on that G, which is kind of similar to the first lick, or at least that movement in the first lick, but it's different obviously, and it's like this. So nothing fancy or shreddy happening there. There's no tapping or sweeping, but it's very expressive. You're digging in. And you want to give that phrase some life. You don't want to just sit there and play it really plain or straight like this. That sounds boring. You got to make it come to life. Pick hard, dig in, grab some of those notes with some authority and conviction. Don't just flatly play. It's going to put everybody to sleep, wake everybody up. Here's a bonus lick from this live footage, and it's a higher position G minor pentatonic blues lick, something like this. One more time. We're in the box right here, key of G. Grab that F and you're going to bend that up a whole step twice. The second time, add a little bit of vibrato, and then you want to release it to that D note right there like this. And then you're going to bend that bend that F up to G again, and then release it just to that single F. And then you're doing this. It's a really typical kind of blues or blues rock lick. Like that. And you're targeting that G note there at the end. So that phrase, one more time right here. way Gilmour's playing it with all that authority and conviction. It sounds amazing. It's got some attitude to it. I'm not really sure what's going on here. I guess this is another bonus lick, but I wanted to include this one too because it's another higher position G minor pentatonic blues lick, and it's really cool, like this. One more time. So we're starting on this B flat and bending that up a whole step. And grab that B flat by itself, G, and grab that F and bend that to G. And then this is almost like the previous lick. Like that. So one more time there. And then you're going to move to another position of G minor pentatonic, and you're basically doing this pre-bend and release on this double stop bend right there. You're holding C and F, and you're doing this. Like that. And then you're basically going to do this G, F sharp to F kind of chromatic move. And then you're targeting that D note right there. A really cool way of ending that phrase. And it's very subtle. Like, he doesn't really emphasize what he did. It's very kind of off the cuff and kind of, you know, subdued in a way, but it's so cool. So one more time with this lick. That's going to wrap this episode of 3 for All with 3 David Gilmour licks from 1988. And definitely, obviously, we targeted his blues side, and it's very vivid and obvious, you know, in this lesson. You can hear it, you can see it, and it's cloudy and kind of camouflaged when you hear it in Pink Floyd or some of David Gilmour's, you know, solo material. But when you put him like in a traditional blues, you know, format or song, he shines like the sun, you know, and it's like, oh my gosh. And then you put him back in Pink Floyd, and it's kind of hidden, you know, it's there. But it doesn't sound the same because it's the prog rock, you know, kind of approach instead of the traditional blues approach. But I like this, you know, kind of noticing what he does in a blues and then noticing what he did with Pink Floyd or his own music. And it's cool to notice the shift, you know, the dark side of the blues, I guess. So anyway, leave some feedback and comments. Please subscribe to Lessons, and I'll be back before you know it with more content and material. Thank you.